Tanama Jore alone. Nama Yawade Agua. Nama Jibanya Crew, Menani Agonya Sagoma Pedo do alone. Nama Jode alone.
Guys, you should see Godwin. I shouldn't be the one on your screen now. You should see Godwin. Guy totally loves soccer there. Welcome back to the show. So earlier, we're telling you that today, actually, the UN sets aside for us to observe education. And so it is International Day for Education. And we thought that why not? Let's have a conversation and draw your attention to the role that education plays in lasting peace in the world in general, and the fact that it is enshrined, Article 26 is enshrined that everybody must have education in the world, especially if you're part of the United Nations. So guys, welcome to the show. Now joining us this morning, we've got two persons, but one already is here. A little later, we'll be joined by Divine Ekpe, but in the studio, we have J. Richard Gilchrist, co-founder of the programs, co-founder and programs manager of Feed Ghana Foundation for Educational Equity and Development, Libraries Without Walls. That's like a lot of things you're a co-founder for.
Anyway, thank you for having me. Yes, but it is.
Is it accurate? Is it accurate what you're a co-founder
it's
for?
Feed.
Okay, Feed Ghana.
That is a Feed Ghana.
Okay, so
Foundation for Educational Equity and Development.
okay, like I feel like these two are very distinct.
Yeah, the Libraries Without Walls is a distinct. What do you call it? It's also found under the Feed Ghana. The Feed Ghana is the umbrella body.
Okay, so when you say feed, it's not like food.
No. Foundation for Educational Equity and Development.
Beautiful.
Wow.
It sounds like it's okay. All right.
Makes sense.
Now it makes sense. I like the clarity. So what is it that you do? Let's get some perspective. What is it that you do?
Yes, so in 2017, the founder and I were working in an NGO in the Shire Sudiku district, Mauvio Outreach School. And we noticed there was a major difficulty, challenge, especially from children who were unable to read. And so at the time, he came out with this idea. Can we find a way of hanging books in baskets under the trees where the children were playing? And I said, can we give it a try? So we did this, and it caught the attention of the student. Everybody was like, let's go and find out what is in these hanging baskets under the tree where we play.
Right.
And so that generated a certain movement of these children, curious to find out what were in these books. These were books ordinarily they were seeing every day in their classroom, and yet they couldn't have the chance to read. But when they were hung, they thought, look, there's something in there. And that is what drove it. So we started first with what we call the Tree Library Project.
Okay.
So we said children should have the opportunity of reading al fresco, wherever they are, the environment. We may not necessarily have a library as a building, and therefore an opportunity is presented for you to read at any. So we started with this Tree Library idea. Then COVID struck in 2020.
Oh, right.
And in 2020, we designed what we call the mobile library system.
Okay.
So in the community where we find ourselves, what we did was basically to zone the area into small areas where at least the numbers will not be so big, so that in the event of, let's say, a case, it may spread. So we zone the areas into various units. So we go to a particular area like Alekope, we'll go to Deeper Life, we'll go to areas like Semam. We'll go to, so we zone them and put these children together.
Okay.
So the library, the mobile library system eventually also emerged out of this Tree Library because there was COVID. Okay. And in the midst of this, we thought the children cannot stay home for a year or two without access to education. Of course.
To measure the impact so far.
Absolutely. We had numbers. Children, in fact, when we walk through the town of Ayukuma, children are like, say, when are you coming to our area again? Say, when are you coming to our area again? So it drove a certain level of urgency among children. Okay. Parents were like, look, this is a wonderful idea.
Are you a teacher professionally?
I am not a professional teacher, but I think I have been teaching for some time.
Okay.
Yes, I've been in the system since 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, teaching in
Okay.
private schools. And so
Okay.
that is basically
What's the driving? What's keeping you in there to be teaching?
Well, in the year 2000, I met a teacher, a science teacher, Lauren Simpi. Lauren Simpi is currently the producer of Akiola textbook, JHS.
Yeah.
And he was my teacher.
Honestly, on the side, I don't like that book.
Everybody knew about it.
Yes.
Okay, so he introduced you
So he instilled in me the desire.
Okay, let's do a bit of our Ghanaian education. I mean, especially because the UN seems to want to use education as the driving force to what they want to achieve, lasting peace.
Yes.
Is this to suggest that where there's no peace, there hasn't been education and all of that? Shall we take a trip to what's happening in Russia, Ukraine? Shall we take a trip to what's happening in Palestine and Israel? What has education not been able to achieve that they thought that, why not, let's take a day to talk about it, to feed in their bigger objective, lasting peace? How can education achieve that?
The whole idea, from SDG go for quality education, and that is where we all need to center the conversation around.
Right.
So you can talk about what is the rationale behind the CST. The focus has fundamental, what do we call it, inbuilt or an inherent reason why this year is learning for lasting peace. Now, what do we think about learning for lasting peace? One, that education can be a medium for conflict resolution and tolerance. Today, what is happening in Palestine, what is happening in Ukraine, stems from an idea that, look, if children or if people had had that education of one, conflict resolution, mediation, would have been able to resolve this whole idea of what is happening, especially in our conflict area. Let us not go far, even in our own Ghanaian system. Look at what is happening in Boko.
Sure.
The whole system, education system, was shut down for almost close to a year. The idea is that we need to now drive a certain communication that indeed education without peace cannot hold. Look at it also, sustainable development. Today, the focus is that our environment is pluralized. And we need to drive a certain conversation around this whole idea of making sure education becomes a pillar, especially in driving the change in our communities and within the global environment.
I want to piggyback on what MFI just asked you, because I think she's coming from the point of we've had education since,
Yes.
right? Education has been with us all this while. How come it's not doing the work of peace, and now we think that it's about time to let education do the work of peace? Is it because the education system is not well proliferated, or it is not, there's no quality in it, and that's why now it's time for us to look at making or using it as a conduit for lasting peace?
So if you look at the whole idea of education as it's been from time immemorial, if you look at what the advanced world have done, it is bringing a lot of changes. But in our part of the world, what do we see? We have had a curriculum that has stayed and outlived its usefulness. So today, a new curriculum comes into place and it's difficult for teachers to implement because one, the resources, two, the technology to implement, three, even the human people, personnel, to be able to implement the new curriculum have not been trained adequately enough to be able to carry out the entire system. And so there is an inherent difficulty and a challenge, especially in ensuring that education receive the key. And so the dynamism in ensuring that changes occur within the system is what we are fumbling with. Today, we need to ensure that education brings in a lot of changes within the environment. But today, people are resistant to change.
Is it the fact, or is it the case that we have challenges for real, or we've created the impression that there's challenges? I mean, of course, we can see the infrastructural problems and all of
Yes.
that, but what we have now, if we take the infrastructural challenge out, what we have now, are we saying that we're unable to achieve like quality education with what we have today? Is it that the system's there. You know, people create artificial shortage even when there's no artificial shortage.
Absolutely.
So I want to understand whether or not these resources and these challenges that you're talking about, are they artificial or they're real? Can we tangible? Is it tangible?
Very, very, very tangible. Our library with our system has had opportunity of visiting areas in the Volta region, in the eastern region. We have gone all the way to the Brong-Ahafo region.
Yeah.
And in all of these,
Yes.
we have had instances where there is, you notice basic difficulty and challenges. One, relative to, do we have a motivated teaching force who are prepared to go into the hinterlands when they are posted there?
Yeah.
That is a difficulty. Do these teachers have the necessary logistics that will carry them through? Now, when you're posted into a community where there's no access to internet connectivity, network access, now, these become fundamental challenges confronting the system. Yeah. There are areas where you can't even access with a car. I've been to some areas within the north, and it's deadly.
The challenges are tangible.
They are there. They are there.
Okay.
My dear, they are there.
Okay. Okay. So we've just been joined by Divine. Divine is no new face on the show, and sometimes I feel like when you're talking to Divine, he's like, you know, like I've been talking about this thing for years, and if you want me to talk about it again, I'll still talk about it. But Divine is joining us. Divine, it's good to see you. Happy New Year. We're having that this year.
Yeah,
Are you okay?
Very okay.
Everything
I trust you
okay?
are too.
Very well, thank you for asking.
Good to see you.
Today, the UN says it's International Day,
Yeah.
as you know. I mean, for you at EduWatch, what does this mean to you, and what are you doing about it? What have you been learning? What would you like people to hear about today?
All right, thank you, and good morning to your viewers. This is a day set aside by UNESCO for us to reflect on education in general, even as we try to achieve the SDG 4, which is to ensure quality education for every child across the globe. Yes, on this day, for us at EduWatch, we are taking moments to reflect and then also marking it by issuing a statement calling on government to continue to prioritize issues of education, especially when it comes to equity dimension, because if you look at it, we still have issues when it comes to equitable education. You look at performance of students, and the national level grade may look good, but if you want to disaggregate it at regional and district level and even down to the community or school level, you'd have seen that we still have a learning deficiency. If we want to take the national standard test, that was the first one in 2021, you'd have realized that although the national average in mathematics or literacy and numeracy is around 50% roughly, if you go down to the district level, even regional level, we still have some region where only 3% of students are having proficiency when it comes to literacy and numeracy. So these challenges are there, and if we do not address them by equitably allocating resources, we'll continue to see the disparity. So for us on this day, the concentration is on basic education because that is the foundation, which we feel over the years has been somehow neglected because of the focus on secondary school or the free senior high school. So we still continue to make the call for government to ensure equitable allocation of resources to basic education, and then also address issues when it comes to the gender dimension. That's another level of quality that we look at. And then also to call on government to ensure efficiency in resource allocation, because yes, it's one thing for you to allocate an X amount to go to education, but it's another thing for you to use it well. If we look at Africa in a whole, the African Union tells us that of the 5% that we spend on education, we waste about 40%. So 40% of the resources that goes into education, we do not spend very well, either because it is being used on projects that is not immediately needed, or it is because of corruption and other related issues.
At what point does this, I'm sorry to catch you because you said a lot and I thought we should
That's fine.
break them down. Two things. So let's get clarity on the equity that you mentioned. So equity in terms of resource allocation, but not equity in the educational resource allocation. So you mean that if there is an X amount of budget for the year, there has to be money that is required for education to be given? Or you mean that the amount of money that is given to education at a particular time should be equitably disbursed?
All right.
Will education be equal and quality if it is equitably disbursed?
All right. So when I talk about equity, I'm looking at, first of all, equity in rural urban dimension, and equity in terms of gender, and then also socio-economic background of the children.
Okay.
Yeah. So for instance, if we take the rural urban dimension, we still go to the rural areas and we see sharp disparity between what is happening in the urban areas and then what is happening in the rural areas. So if you use a blanket check, the generic approach of financing education, everybody gets the equal share, or the per capita income spent on every student is the same. You realize that those in the urban areas will continue to be at the advantage end. So how do we ensure we use equity approach in distributing resources such that those in the deprived communities, if you look at GES data, they have about 57 deprived districts in the country, and those are the
GES district offices itself are deprived. Yeah, Richard.
But I mean,
the GES in Shire Osudu, how does it look?
Deadly.
So, looking at the fact that if you want to allocate resource, look at the issues in the deprived areas and see how you allocate resource to that. And if you are distributing teachers, you consider the issues in the underserved areas and allocate teachers equitably. Now, the other dimension of equity I'm talking about is the gender dimension. Of course, we have done well as a country when it comes to achieving gender parity in our education system, especially at the basic education level. We have attained one, which means that the ratio to boys to girls is good.
Improved.
Yeah. However, the challenge is that when you look at the progression, yes, it's one thing for them to come to school, but it's another thing for them to progress and remain in school and even complete. So the 2021 EMIS data tells that the GSS completion rate for girls is about 87%, which means that 13% of them annually do not complete their junior high school. So yes, we have gotten them to school, but how do we ensure that they remain in school? And then also when we are teaching, how do we ensure that we close the equity gap in the boys and the girls, their performance? That's the next equity dimension. And the last dimension is the efficiency in spending the resources.
I like Richard to take the efficiency, because at what point is the shortfall? When the money is allocated, is it the people, at what point, GES or when it gets to the school? Who are those not using the money efficiently, whether or not the money is enough or not, even if it is just a percentage? At what point do we get the shortfall?
So the shortfall usually comes in where one doesn't even get there at the right time. You see, the whole system has been programmed in such a way that at the time when the resources are needed, these materials or these resources are not there. And so the temptation, headmasters and headmistresses would then have to struggle to ensure that at least they find some other means. And it may not be there. So by the time the whole capitation get to the specific schools, the term is almost ending, and they have struggled. And these children are getting access to the necessary materials. Teachers need them for classroom. Children may need these books also for classroom activity. These access or materials or resources usually come when, again, we also have instances where there's what we call wastefulness. There's wastage, especially in the entire system, especially in many of the district offices. You go there, a car is broken down, and nobody has a way of maintaining the car there. You have other materials, and there's so much waste in the system.
Better late than never. Eventually, when the resources get there, have we had, because you are the research center where I can be okay with your data and your specific, have we had challenges where we'll say that schools didn't use the monies that came efficiently, or the efficiency is at the ministry?
No. It cuts across the entire spectrum of the sector. And so when I was talking about the efficiency, first, I'm looking at it at the central level, the government level, and what is happening at the school level. So yes, you are right when you say that even the little we put in, we should see that it's being put to use very well. So nationally, for us, we believe at EduWatch, we believe some of the expenditure by government does not promote spending efficiency. And I really don't want to talk about it because anytime when I mention it, teacher trainees will always be angry with me. For instance,
Okay.
yeah, teacher trainees allowance. In this age, we feel that it's not a prudent use of scarce education resource. So if you want to talk of spending efficiency, where you have abandoned hostel projects in colleges of education, yet you spend about 240 million annually to feed adults in tertiary institution who could have access to student loan, just like their colleague doing B.Ed in university accessing the student loan to do their education. We feel that that aspect of using 240 million does not promote spending
In
efficiency.
simple terms, the teacher training allowance you described.
Oh yes, we have.
Richard, do you agree?
That's. I don't want us to debate it. But that,
It depends on where he's coming from.
and then
There are obviously people who will need it.
Okay.
But for that intervention, others would have been cut off from the educational
But we're talking
system.
about equity and efficiency.
And that is
so
why-
the basic level, the most you have had your education
Yeah.
through for you to have gotten to the training college, and I've been learning from you for the few conversations that we've had, Divine. For you to have gotten to the teacher training college, you may have enjoyed the basic level, whichever way, right? And so we're saying that if we have just one amount of resource, X amount of resources available, the basic level that you went through to become a teacher, that child there is suffering and is not able to become a teacher as you. So why do we have to pay you for being for wanting to become a teacher at the training level to take care of you when that child cannot get to the point where you will become a teacher to teach it?
The fact is that you will need that teacher also to be able to be ready for the child. The other dimension.
Is it a matter of chicken or the egg?
So, you see, either way,
That's why you said you didn't want to debate
yeah,
it.
because for us, like I mentioned, no, what is the essence of the teacher training allowance is to get people, motivate people to go to the college. And data clearly shows that we don't need money to incentivize people to come to college. The very fact that we even change from bachelor awarding institution to four-year degree awarding institution alone is even attracting. Yes,
Oh, so
and
now
then
you don't have to finish and go to the
university to do your B.Ed. No,
Yes.
you don't
So
have to do
you
it.
Oh, Uncle
So
Richard.
and then the very fact that you know when you are done with school, you will be posted to go
no
and
matter
teach.
how bad the place is.
Exactly. So you still get employment compared to somebody that gone to Winneba or UCC to do the same degree to get the same B.Ed. That person, the assurance of that person posting is not even higher than you who have gone to college. And we are not saying that there's no other mean that people who actually need money to go to school, there's no other mean that they can access. The student loan is there. And if you look at the data, the time that the allowance was taken, it was taken during Mahama times, it was taken off. That was the time we had the highest enrollment in colleges of education because of the allowance, government will need to put admission quota. Because if you admit more, you need more money to pay allowance. But it means if you remove the allowance, there's opportunity. There's no allowance to pay. So you can admit more students into the college. But that's not the next wastage we feel is that, I don't want not wastage, but we feel the current scheme of the free SHS. If it is streamlined, we can reduce the amount we are spending on secondary school education to free resource to use at the other subsectors of because the wholesale approach of the implementation of the free SHS for us, we feel that it is putting so much pressure on government and then also so much pressure also on parents. If you look at the budget credibility rate for government, the policy inception in 2017, which we started the policy, government spent 120% of the education resource on, or the money, the allocated amount at the end of the fiscal year, the total amount spent was 120 of the budget credibility. What it means that if government said, I'm going to allocate 5 million to the policy in 2017, at the end of the day, if the credibility rate, it looks at it, whether government has overspent or underspent. Okay, so that 120% in the 2017 means that government overspent by 20%.
Yes.
Subsequent year, 2018, the budget credibility rate reduced to 99%, which means that at the amount allocated, government was unable to make available 1%. Now, fast forward to 2021, the budget credibility is actually 59%, which means that government was unable to get 49% of the money that it puts in budget that I'm allocating to the free SHS. At the end of the day, government was unable to get about 41% to
Which
make to
threatens the goal 4 of the SDG.
of course.
quality of
So
education.
what we mean is that once you feel like this is what you need to implement your free SHS, but you are struggling to get it.
Trim it.
Yeah, so streamline it so that you can easily
Richard,
shoulder it.
let's get into the theme of today, where the UN says that learning
For lasting peace.
for lasting peace. Thank you, Richard. So how is Ghana? Are we all being on the journey of, teaching and learning or any form of education? And Gordon earlier was asking the theme, is it for just classroom education or it is also for any type of education, TVET, vocation or anything? How are we teaching, or how is education in Ghana contributing to this theme that the UN is hoping to achieve? Are we even doing it at all, or are we just teaching and hoping to fit in the theme?
Yeah, so the whole educational system needs to be holistic. It should encompass every facet of a child's life. And so if we are talking about a total holistic education, it means that we bring on board every child, irrespective of one, his socio-economic community, ethnicity, so that children by default are not eliminated along the way in the course of achieving education. But again, what we see, the difficulty and the challenge is that, like my brother initially stated, if you compare the rural-urban dimension in terms of access to education, you will notice that, well, a lot of the people are left behind in the course of the system because, one, they are unable to have access. And so that is why even for us at the Foundation for Educational Equity, we are stressing more on the equity side of the education, where we feel that at least every child, irrespective of your gender, irrespective of where you're coming from, irrespective of your socio-economic status, you should be able to you should be enrolled or embraced into the whole system so that everybody becomes part of it. But we have had instances where people, by default, as a result of where they are coming from, their location, their environment, they are deprived access to some quality education.
Okay, I mean, Divine, before you came in, Richard made the point that when we have good education, we can teach children or students or whoever is seeking education, conflict resolutions, and all of that. And then I was asking that, is this to suggest that in Israel and Palestine and all this, because I mean, UN seeks a whole world lasting peace, right? They're not seeking for certain selected countries. Is it that education is at a shortfall over there? If you come to Ghana in Boko, will we say that up north over there, if education was heavily centered, we won't get the kind of misunderstanding we're getting over there? What do they even mean by lasting peace? Is peace the absence of war?
All right.
I talk too much.
I think on the face of it, if you look at the when it talks about peace at the UN level, meaning generally they are trying to avoid these petty conflicts and even general war, large-scale wars. So although it may not be the absence of war, but when you just you can start from there. Yeah, and if you look at the preamble to UNESCO Constitution, it says that since wars begin in the mind of men, it is in the mind of men that the defense of peace must be built, which means that education can be used to address issues of war or even conflicts in entirety. But unfortunately, we haven't designed our education system to promote soft skills that will enhance issues of peace. For instance, I don't know at what point the curriculum has been well structured to teach a soft skill like tolerance, Yeah.
Oh, that's what you call a soft skill.
Yeah, soft skills.
When you said I talk carpentry or...
Oh, no. Those are the hard skills.
Yeah, okay.
Those are the hard skills.
Okay.
So soft skills like tolerance, empathy. So we don't have curriculum that actually promotes. So you and I, we are growing up in school, and the best thing is to retaliate. Your friend has done the damage to you, is to react immediately. So the curriculum has not helped us to, so I think let me tolerate my friend to some extent. And then also, as you said, I wasn't here, as you said, how to resolve conflicts between the two of you. What is the best way to resolve conflicts? Or is it all the time, once somebody has done something and you have gone to the teacher to report, the next reaction of the teacher is to punish the person, which
is what we are learning.
Which actually shouldn't be, because at the end of the day, the child is learning that the only way to resolve a difference is through pain, inflicting pain or punishment. You see, so the teacher can actually engage the two people to come to a common term. So I've forgiven you. Oh, yes, already. But at the end of the day, I've reported. Oh, you have done this. Then and then
actually, me, if you don't lash the person, I'll be.
You see, that's why we say the curriculum. The curriculum is not promoting these soft skills of you to forgiving the person and then be comfortable. So I'm forgiving you.
And we won't lose our morale.
So you see, those are some of the challenge. And then for the very fact that issues of bullying, extreme violence in our school, we haven't addressed them over the years. So you go to our school environment and still you see abuses, like physical abuse, fighting among students, and then also a child being bullied over and over and over. Across from basic school to secondary school, bullying continues to be endemic in our school. And the disadvantage of bullying is that, a child that is continuously bullied is at the risk of becoming violent in the future. So if I bully you, one day you are going to say, okay, I've gotten used to it. And I'm going to stand up for myself.
Skin, yes.
So you also react.
Defense.
Defense. I get it. So that's the challenge. So if you don't address some of the petty things in our educational system, like addressing bullying.
Intentional curriculum.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what the UN actually seeks.
Exactly.
Yes,
So how do we use our educational system to inculcate some of these soft skills so that it can promote lasting peace in our society? So the education actually has a role to play. And it's not just about the literacy and numeracy. It is about the soft skills that actually help us to live in harmony among each other. And if you look at some of our curriculum, yes, they've done well, for instance, religious and moral education. Unfortunately, we've turned the purpose upside down. The purpose is to at least help somebody to learn tolerance for another religion. Okay? But you see a Christian teacher trying to use it to promote their religion. And the same way, the Islamic teacher is trying to use
it. Are you a Christian or a Muslim?
I am a Christian.
You're a Christian.
Yes.
Do you teach religious and moral studies?
Well,
at some point.
I am science bias.
You're science bias. Okay. I mean, Gordon, I was telling you earlier in the show that so they seek to want to. There's a hashtag that says that starts the story. Basically, start the story on social media. Start it on your WhatsApp status. Start it on wherever the medium where the younger people are learning from. Is that a tool that really can achieve the goal? Richard, you want to go before?
Yes, so it is for this reason that even for us, by Saturday, we are partnering with O Africa to design a program for cyber security, especially for our Aspire students. These are a group of secondary school students. We are offering some form of scholarship assistance to them from our organization. The idea is to start that conversation. When they are on social media, what do they do? What are the kind of environment, what kind of conversation goes around them? There are people who are bullied on social media, left, right, center, and yet they have no means of reporting to under which system. The police may be having their own means of attending to some of these things. So we believe that if they are using a hashtag that can, the young generation currently are more in tune with this social medium system. And therefore, for them, I think it's an opportunity for us to reach a wider number in terms of people who are the target. Again, the second one is to be able to see if we can drive a whole interest around the conversation so that irrespective of where you are, because you have access to internet, you have access to a mobile phone or a technological device, you are able to, continue with that conversation so that tomorrow, the target of achieving what we call international lasting peace will be achieved. And so that is where I see the whole conversation on it.
Divine, I'm concerned because a child's formative, for you, for a researcher, what's a child's formative age? What age? From what age to what age?
All right, if you look at the formative age, it depends. Even the psychologist will tell you that even the very time the child develops, the brain and the stuff start to develop. And if it is about academics, they even tell you we need to begin to create an academic environment right away in the home before the child even gets to start education.
At age 6.
Yeah,
so that's a pre.
So if you look at it, because of the formative age, which is very critical, that's why the emphasis is even being laid on early grade education or early child education now. So yes, our system is we want a child to start education from age 4. But again, preschools are there, which actually come before the 4 years of enrolling in KG.
Now that you've put that clarity, this social media that we're hashtagging to want to use as a tool, this child, because that's the time that if they're going to learn anything violence, make up their mind about retaliation and all of that, by the time they get to the secondary school age, where the scholarship that you're giving, social media will become a mitigation form instead of actually even inculcating the lasting peace. And so who would then be the user of social media to teach the child? Parents, students, like teachers? I want to see the potency and the real results it will give, still remembering the age of a child and what they would have decided in their minds if they want to be violent before they are 18 years. There's not much you can do about it.
Yeah, I want to understand his point that at least they want to target some of the people or the youth that are mostly nowadays on social media. So yes, we could still have other means to help those that are not yet on social media. Maybe a child growing up, you begin to teach them some of these soft skills at home. Yeah, like social emotional learning, which can be taught at early age. But the social media aspect, I want to be like, it's one of the tools that they want to use aside all the other tools that are available for us. Because the average youth spend much time on social media these days. And you ask yourself, what do they watch? Most of the stuff are also very extreme. And violence, especially cyber violence, is becoming more prone on social media. So if the child is more on social media and then seeing some of the stuff that are online, it means that we can still use social media also to undo some of the things that they want. So if we begin to use social media to promote the ideals of some of the soft skills needed to enhance peace, it helps. So the idea of social media is also very important. However, I feel that if we really want to begin to address issues of using education as a tool to address peace or issues of differences in society, first, we need to ensure that be intentional about it, that our curriculum, when we look at curriculum, we look at what we call the one is obvious, that is written in our curriculum that we can say the teacher can teach. There are other aspects of curriculum that is not written, which is the school climate. How do we, in general, promote a school climate that is welcoming for every child, that is actually violence-free? Once you promote that, the child is knowing that I need not to be violent towards my colleague. And even back home, how do we ensure that parents begin to build an environment that actually helps students or their children to know that A and B can promote violence in society, and then they need not to be introduced. Even the movies that they watch, parents will have to be intentional about the kind of movies they are watching.
Final question.
Okay.
I have a final question, and any of you can take this. So how are we, for example, in Konya and Alavanyo conflict existed years, and until recently, Karachi East, you remember this violence that happened, tribal violence. Boko has never been ending. It started years ago. How am I having a curriculum? Should we be intentional with the curriculum in school and start to teach soft skills that I have just been learning from you today? Teach the child, and the child comes back to the same community that is controlled by customs and tradition, which has been the major driving force of these conflicts. What are we doing? Pouring water on stones, or we really will get results? Is it not the chief and the the traditional leaders that need their education? Should we take gongo and go to the appellate and teach them, or how? The thing we're teaching in classroom, how will we now transcend to the communities? Richard, you can take it.
So, if you have observed quite more recently, you will notice that the chieftaincy institution is changing. Looking at the caliber of people who are now assuming roles as chiefs and kings in their communities, we are now beginning to have more people who have had that formal form of education. And the whole idea is to be able to change the status quo. Before, you only assume a chieftaincy position only when they didn't even find going to school. Yes.
Right.
When you have not even been. But today, I think the dynamics are changing.
Okay.
I think the whole scope is now about, one, what we can do as an individual and as a nation. I think we will have to now recenter, especially the whole education space, on the basis of the ideals of what the community seeks to achieve.
And this is a constitutional amendment too, because there's a requirement of who a chief is. The Constitution tells who a chief should be, and it does not add you should be educated.
But many chiefs, like today,
You're lucky if the chief that passes the constitutional requirement, Article 2 something, before my lectures come at me, but the constitutional requirement that you have to march, right? We're lucky that some people that march it originally and traditionally are educated, right? So they may have had the opportunity to come in contact with the soft skills and all of that, even if it existed, we don't know, or they learned it at home or anything, or it is taken as granted that this person who's becoming a chief or a leader of that community should have empathy, should be violence-free, shouldn't have any crime and all of that. So there's an indirect requirement of it. But if the turkey who is a leader is leading a group of people that are not educated in this way, are we ever going to get results? I'm asking this question because I feel like we're going like in circles.
Yes.
And we've not had any form of violence, and maybe in some parts of Accra and certain places that we're delusional, thinking that because of high level of education, we are not having that. It's rather existing in Boko and all of that. Is it that they are not going, they are not educated, they are not interested, or it is just deep-rooted in their DNA?
Okay, the issues of violence, actually there are several causes, and it's not that because the people are not educated, but because of historical fact that they may be using to engage in the conflicts. However, the place of education is still important in addressing some of these issues. In some of these areas that you mentioned, if the school is intentional in telling the student that come to the environment that, look, Nkunya people, they are not your enemy. Alabajan people, they are not your enemy. And begin to teach these soft skills. Some of these students will grow up not to be part of the people that will be engaging in the conflict, because the school system has helped them. Yeah. However, the conflict resolution experts, they know how to address the existing one. But again, we can still ensure that the student, after going through the educational system, they do not become part of the people that are repeating what is existing, because the school should be able to help them understand that war is not the way to go. There's a way to resolve conflicts. And if we begin to teach conflict resolution right from the basic school, when my friend offends me, teacher engages them for them to be able to resolve that. That will be very helpful. So the ideal, the existing places that we have conflict, while we are pursuing other agenda to address the conflict, the school will still have to ensure that the children that are coming to school, they do not grow to become part of the people that are engaging in this conflict, because the school has prepared them to that war is not the way to go.
Okay. Well, let me give you the final minutes to tell us what kind of help you need at your foundation, how people can reach out to help you, at least achieve your object. So tell us.
All right, so thank you so much. For us at Foundation for Educational Equity, one of the key areas we are focusing on is the libraries without walls. And the libraries without walls, we need access to books to be able to visit communities where there are no go areas. So we are usually using these books to reach out to a huge number of children in underserved community. Another area we are also focusing much on is providing scholarship for needy but brilliant students. And currently,
We're very
Uncle Gordon
needy, but
doesn't need, Uncle
we're
Gordon
very
doesn't
needy.
need it.
We're very
Yeah,
needy.
he doesn't need it.
But we like to think we are quite brilliant, so please consider it.
Okay, so for us at FEED, we believe that our ASPIRE program, where we are focusing on the next generation of leaders, where we say that the free senior high school is free, but of course, you and I can testify that there are an inherent cost build up in that, especially getting your chalkboards and all of that. So this is where we come in from FEED perspective to support our ASPIRE. Currently, we have 20 what we call ASPIRE beneficiaries who we are supporting in one way or the other, especially with some stipend, some educational materials, and probably providing them with some provisions in that. Again, the other aspect we are also focusing on is what we call the Green Vanguard Initiative. The Green Vanguard Initiative under FEED is focusing on what we call, one, the climate change issues. Now, the world is at its feet now, simply because there's a danger to our climate today. And therefore, we want to start the sensitization very early, especially at the schools level. We want to even start with tree planting from the primary level to the JHS level, and probably scale it up even to the senior, so that the children from that young age will understand why it is important for them to be able to ensure that there's a protection of the environment in which they need. And so for us at FEED, support may come in several forms. Our website, www.feedghana.org. I think that we have a lot of our mediums through which we can be reached, and we can access our platform for support. Libraries Without Wall is also on all our social media platforms. Okay. And for us, we accept both in cash and in kind. And we have had so many organizations, both international, local, reaching out to support, noticing the good work we are doing, and then helping us to be able to reach it. We believe that the target is to reach close to about 200,000 by close of this year in terms of areas we have had contact, in terms of areas that we have had children we have physically supported in terms of books and other. So this is what we are currently appealing for. And if this support can come, we believe that it will be a long way to go in supporting our organization.
It's a good cause, an absolute good cause. And so we're hoping that people are able to come through to support you to achieve this object of yours, okay?
Thank you so much.
Anytime you need somebody to read to the children and all of that with a wide smile, I'll be happy to help.
I can't wait to invite you.
All right, thank you. Gordon as well. Divine, share food at Edu Wache.
Share food.
Yeah, today, like, you and...
I'll invite you.
Hey, that's all you do for us to listen to you. So that when you issue the reports, we'll listen really. Food is where the heart is, okay?
I understand. We'll invite you. Let me use the opportunity to ask my last comment to remind government of the existing challenges in our basic school, especially the deficits. It's so much. We are having about 40% of Ghanaian primary school children that are not having sitting and writing places. As we mark this particular day, it is a clarion call for government to, as a matter of urgency, address the situation. You know, if government will use the opportunity in the 2024 GET Fund budget by allocating 70% of the GET Fund budget to issues of infrastructure, because last year what happened was that 70% of the GET Fund budget was rather going to non-infrastructure projects. Meanwhile, the GET Fund is ideally meant for infrastructure projects. So this year, when government is preparing its GET Fund budget and the formula to be presented to Parliament, we urge government to allocate at least 70% to infrastructure, and then also to consider issues of the debt deficit highly in that particular budget. So we urge government on this day to use the GET Fund budget that will soon be preparing, the formula that will soon be sending to Parliament, to prioritize issues of debt deficit in our school in that particular budget.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Always a pleasure talking to you. Divine, thank you for making time always for us. Richard, thank you for letting us in on this amazing thing that you're doing. So is it okay to say we wish you a happy International Day for Education as we've taken time to observe it? Yeah. All the best, guys. We'll touch base soon. Have a good one.
Thank you.
And to our third guest,
yes.
Godwin. Thank you. Godwin is about to plug you on. So
No,
enjoy this one.
about to
We'll
plug
be
you
right
onto
back.
something. No.
Violence is what they've been teaching us not to do. Guys, we'll be right back.